Thank goodness since Daystar graduated, amazing doors have opened for him. In a way, I just talked to our foreign guy who is in charge of all of our chances to teach the gospel on satellites and over-the-air channels in all 195 countries. I asked him, Steve, is this unusual, how many open doors we're seeing in 2024 and even so far in 2025? He responded, I can tell you it's all firsts. I've worked for Daystar for 25 years and have never seen so many doors open. All of that is to say that if I know Marcus Lamb, he's helping me out here in that big cloud of witnesses in any way he can. We both know that he's very determined. Were you there when Joni spoke? I feel pride, not just confidence but pride wrapped in a disturbing lack of connection to the continued chaos at Daystar. As I heard what she had to say, something became clear. She is drawing a picture of God's help, but by doing that, she doesn't care at all about the complaints about her leadership. The way she talks about Daystar's growth during a controversial time makes me wonder about her responsibility, her humility, and whether she even hears the people who have asked her to step down. Joni Lamb's speech wasn't just a report on how far Daystar has reached. These words seem to make fun of people who have questioned her rule. She chose to talk about how Daystar is reportedly doing better than ever instead of addressing the real worries about honesty and moral leadership. Let's carefully look at what she said. She said that Daystar has had doors of opportunity open to her in ways that have never been seen before. According to her, even a Daystar executive with more than 20 years of experience said he had never seen such favor. What does this really mean, though? For the normal watcher, it might look like proof of God's growth. The tone, on the other hand, suggests something completely different. It sounds like she doesn't care about what other people think, which is a quiet but clear sign that she thinks no one can hurt her. Imagine that a leader is being criticized for poor management, and the public is paying close attention. Instead of responding, the leader goes on national TV and brags about their unwavering success. What does that say? It tells people, what you have to say doesn't matter to me, you can't stop me from winning. That's where the trouble is. It's beautiful to have faith in God. That being said, what happens when confidence turns into arrogance? There is a thin line between believing in God's help and using success as a tool to shut down people who disagree with you. Joni Lamb's words, especially her mention of Marcus Lamb's appearance in the large group of witnesses helping her, sound like an almost magical support for her leadership. When people use this kind of language, it sends the message that anyone who disagrees with her is not only against her but also against God's will. We need to ask ourselves if this is how a humble servant of God should act when faced with a problem. If she really believed in honesty and responsibility, she would have used this chance to talk about the problems of people who feel cheated, ignored, or even tricked by Daystar's business practices. She chose to party, brag about her success, and say that God had a hand in it instead of focusing on the important problems that needed to be solved right away. For a leader who values openness, this is not the right answer. This is the answer of someone who thinks she is above criticism. Daystar has been having problems both inside and outside the company. There have been calls for more responsibility and even for Joni Lamb to step down. It doesn't matter if these complaints are fair or not, a responsible leader would recognize them. What she said, though, didn't even hint that she understood that people are angry, that they are worried about how things are being treated, or that they need to talk. Instead, she gave off an air of strength, which added to the idea that fighting back is pointless. The word was clear: I am still here, and I am doing very well. A real leader, especially in the church, doesn't use success stories to shut down people who disagree with them. They talk to, listen to, and try to understand what their fans are worried about. Joni's way of doing things is wrong. It says that outcomes are more important than connections, that growth is a sign of divine approval, and that growth is a good thing no matter what the cost to people. Looking at ancient examples of leadership, Joni Lamb's style is very different from the humble leadership shown by Moses, David, and Paul. God clearly liked King David, but he didn't use his wins to shut down people who didn't agree with him. When he realized what he had done wrong, he admitted it and tried to make peace with both God and the people. Proverbs 16:18 tells us that arrogance and pride lead to disaster. When Joni made her speech, she used language that sounds more like she was praising herself than like a spiritual leader should be. James 4:6 tells us that God fights against the proud but gives kindness to the humble. When a boss starts to think no one can hurt them, they enter dangerous ground. The idea that God's favor means you can't be criticized is a slippery slope that has led many groups into controversy, division, and eventually their downfall. Daystar has to make a choice. Without a question, the network has been a giant in Christian broadcasting, reaching millions of people around the world. But a ministry can't do well in the long run if its people are proud and try to avoid problems. Even if Joni Lamb says that doors are opening, people will still be worried about how she is leading. It's possible that what she said made things worse. It makes people who have been doubting Daystar's honesty even less likely to trust them, and it supports the idea that leadership doesn't want to deal with real problems. Joni Lamb should have admitted what was going on, reassured people that responsibility is important, and opened the door for a discussion. She instead gave a speech that sounded more like a victory lap than an emergency reaction. Many leaders have lost their jobs because they were too proud. The story is the same for all kings and CEOs past and present. Being humble heals, while pride hurts. In answer to the current problems at Daystar Television, Joni Lamb recently said something that shows this: the chance or golden moment to be humble, talk to doubters and make peace was there. Instead, it came across as rude, angry, and even funny at times. Instead of directly addressing the serious accusations, Joni's comments seemed to support the idea that success makes everything okay. But here's the truth: open doors, growing networks, and bigger crowds are not ways to measure success in service. Character, respect, and a desire to learn and grow are what make it possible. Joni Lamb's comment was a chance lost. It could have been a chance to listen to the critics, show real concern for those who feel harmed, and promise to be open and responsible. It seemed more like a feint, a sly jab at people who are brave enough to question her leadership. This method not only makes things worse between Joni and those who disagree with her, but it also makes people wonder if she can really lead with ethics. Leaders who are proud instead of humble when they are criticized send a clear message: they care more about how they look than the truth. But let's be clear, this isn't just about Joni Lamb, it's about a bigger problem that a lot of leaders have, especially in the church. Success can make you feel good. It can give leaders the impression that they can't be defeated, making them think they are above criticism. But the Bible makes it clear. Proverbs 16:18 says that pride leads to destruction, and a proud heart to a fall. Many times in history, leaders let their pride get in the way of their judgment, which caused their powers to fall. Joni Lamb has to make a choice. She can choose to be humble, pay attention to what her enemies have to say, and take real steps to be responsible. She can keep going down the path of pride, which puts everything she has worked for at risk. Leaders can't see their own flaws when they are full of pride. It makes a bubble where criticism is seen as jealousy, taking responsibility is seen as an attack, and success is thought to be God's favor. This is how I feel about what Joni Lamb said. She didn't talk about the claims of mismanagement of funds, spiritual abuse, and bullying. Instead, she focused on Daystar's growth and spread. Even though growth is good, it can't be used as an excuse not to deal with feedback. Ministry growth isn't just about having a lot of people, it's all about effect. Life is changed, communities are changed, and the message is spread in a trustworthy way. It's not really success for Daystar if its growth comes at the cost of openness and responsibility. It's just a front. Now we get to the heart of the problem. Is Daystar really doing well, or is this just a short-term trick to hide problems? Time will tell, but one thing is certain: pride doesn't win in the end. Leaders who won't admit when they're wrong, don't care about feedback, and put their own image ahead of the well-being of their following, are setting themselves up to fail. The Bible tells us over and over that pride is bad. God fights against the proud but gives grace to the humble. says James 4:6. If Joni Lamb really wants Daystar to do well in the long run, she needs to pay attention to this message. If she doesn't listen to feedback, it will still be there. The gap between leaders and people will only get bigger if leaders brag about growth while ignoring worries. It is the job of the Christian community to hold its leaders responsible. No amount of success can be used as an excuse for bad behavior. We can't let growth get in the way of being honest. People who follow Joni Lamb need to believe her again, and she needs to take real steps toward being open and responsible. This means letting a separate review look into the claims, being honest about Daystar's funds, and listening to the concerns of critics and people who have reported wrongdoing. It also means she has to own up to her mistakes and be ready to learn and grow. Being humble doesn't mean you're weak. It means you're strong. Telling someone you're wrong, hearing their feedback, and making changes all take guts. The chance is there for Joni Lamb to show this kind of bravery. She can show that she cares more about honesty and ethics than about looks and success. But she risks not only her own image but also Daystar's future if she stays on the path of pride. There is a lot at stake. You can do more with Daystar Television than just watch it. An organization that helps a lot of people all over the world. Its job is to let people know about the message and give them hope. But if that goal is hurt by not being honest, responsible, or humble, then it loses its authority. Everyone is watching Joni Lamb, and what she does in this situation will have effects that last for a long time. What will she do? Will she be humble and take responsibility, or will her pride lead her astray? Let's remember how important forgiveness is. As we think about this situation, we need to hold leaders responsible, but we also need to show them kindness and forgiveness. This doesn't mean that you should excuse crime or ignore unfair treatment, seeing that we are all flawed, that we all make mistakes, and that we all need to be saved. There is room for kindness if Joni Lamb is ready to admit she was wrong, ask for forgiveness, and make things right. But that starts with being honest and taking responsibility. Prayers should still be said for Joni Lamb, Daystar, and everyone else who is touched by this incident. Let's hope that the truth will be revealed, that justice will be done, and that people will be healed. Let's pray that people who have been abused, manipulated, or wronged will find comfort, support, and healing. Let us also pray for the Christians everywhere, that we will have the strength to stand up for what's right.